With the allegations of sexual assault and now possible dead bodies buried in the area of Jeffrey Epstein's former New Mexico ranch, we have stumbled upon a report to the FBI that Epstein may have had very strange equipment on the property. Equipment one could potentially use to destroy evidence. Now, with the launch of two brand new investigations into the Zorro ranch, are investigators going to actually find anything if evidence was possibly destroyed? Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. As you know, we have been focusing a lot recently on Jeffrey Epstein's former property, the Zorro Ranch out in New Mexico. Why? Because on top of the prior accusations of sexual assault occurring on that property, which we're going to talk about, now in the newly released Epstein files, there are accusations of dead bodies buried in that area. And you have two investigations that have been launched in New Mexico. So first, you have New Mexico lawmakers who officially launched a truth commission. In fact, to give you an idea about this, we had Representative Andrea Romero, who said that this subcommittee will use subpoena powers and public records and testimony to, quote, put the whole story together. At the same time, the New Mexico Department of Justice announced that they would open a criminal investigation. They released a statement saying the following: upon reviewing information recently released by the U.S. Department of Justice, Attorney General Raul Torres has ordered that the criminal investigation into allegations of illegal activity at Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch be reopened. Although the state of New Mexico's prior investigation was closed in 2019 at the request of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, which we'll talk about, revelations outlined in the previously sealed FBI files warrant further examination. Special agents and prosecutors at the New Mexico Department of Justice will be seeking immediate access to the complete unredacted federal case file and intend to work collaboratively with our law enforcement partners, as well as the Epstein Truth Commission recently established by the New Mexico legislature. As with any potential criminal matter, we will follow the facts wherever they lead, carefully evaluate jurisdictional considerations, and take appropriate investigative action, including the collection and preservation of any relevant evidence that remains available. That's exactly what we're talking about now. We are moving quickly and deliberatively on this issue and will provide updates as appropriate. So, with that in mind, as we think about these investigations, we found a very disturbing document in the Epstein files that we need to talk about. And this raises an allegation now of whether Jeffrey Epstein, or possibly somebody in his employ, could have possibly destroyed evidence. What am I talking about? We go to this FBI crisis intake memo, where it says that a retired New Mexico state police officer. So first of all, if that's true, this is a very different line of credibility than if you have somebody, John Smith or an unidentified person or someone off the street, right? This is apparently a former member of law enforcement. Now, this person, we don't really know the name, but this person apparently contacted the FBI National Threat Operations Center on July 19th, 2019. Time frame is important here. So this is after Epstein was arrested on federal sex trafficking of minors charges and before he was found dead in his jail cell. Okay? Now, this is what the FBI crisis intake memo says, this document. Quote, Redacted provided the following information. Redacted lives in the neighborhood of a property owned by Jeffrey Epstein. The property, which is on Zorro Ranch Road, Stanley, New Mexico, has recently had a large barn constructed. The barn is suspicious as there is a garage door that appears to be a sally port and there is a chimney. Now, a sally port, by the way, is a secured, controlled entryway. You usually see these in fortifications or prisons, so kind of odd to have at a property like this. By the way, as we're going through this, you have to wonder, with this Truth Commission being set up and also with the Department of Justice now launching a criminal investigation, whoever this person is, if they're still around, are they going to come forward now? Something to think about. Quote, Redacted is concerned the property could potentially have an incinerator concealed within the barn. An old 1970s mobile home was recently put right behind the barn, which Redacted believes does not follow Santa Fe County regulations. There have been a lot of high-profile people seen frequenting the property. Redacted has heard rumors that the property was used for recruiting girls to visit with Epstein, but he has no factual evidence to support this claim. Redacted heard rumors that girls from Albuquerque and the Moriarty area were recruited for Epstein. Redacted patrolled this area for 15 years before he retired. The property was owned previously by the governor of New Mexico, but the property was sold to Epstein before the governor's passing. The property that Redacted is reporting is about 3 miles away from Epstein's mansion. Redacted explained that there is a lot of security for the properties, including cameras, alley ports, and other security measures. Redacted explained that Redacted, the barn that was constructed, doesn't look like a barn you would use for ranching. Redacted wanted to report the information to the FBI because he is concerned evidence could be destroyed here. Again, as I mentioned, this is allegedly coming from a former member of law enforcement, so you have to look at it differently, right? You have to look at that perspective a little differently. But to be clear, we do not know who this person is. We do not know whether this tip was followed up on. I will say it is disturbing, to say the least, about a reportedly, 7,600-acre property. And the natural question is, was Epstein or somebody in his employ allegedly hiding or destroying evidence? And will there be anything for investigators to find now? By the way, this is one of the reasons why it's frustrating to see an investigation into this property, maybe a more thorough investigation or a continued investigation in 2026, not 2019.
Guys, have you heard about this? Breaking news. A recent report from Forbes shows that employees who use AI at work, they are earning 40% more than those who don't. Yeah, AI is changing employment, and right now it really matters because the early adopter, that phase is over. So the question is simple. Will you watch this shift or are you going to win from it? Outskill, we got to talk about them. First ever AI-focused educational platform for AI learning. They are hosting a 2-day AI Mastermind training live this Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern. And right now is the perfect time to join because you can get in free for the next 48 hours. This 16-hour AI training has already built 10 million plus AI professionals across all industries. And by the way, is rated 4.9 stars on Trustpilot. You're going to learn to build AI agents that plan, write, and execute for you, automate workflows, connect tools like Sheets and email to create systems. You'll get a boost at work with the hours that you save, and you're going to learn to profit from those skills. People from this training have launched AI services that bring in $2,000 to $3,000 a week. You're also going to get the AI Prompt Bible, the AI Profit Roadmap, a personal AI Toolkit Builder, and the 2026 AI Survival Hackbook. This is a guide of upcoming AI shifts and steps to take to be prepared. Now, seats are limited, so use the link in the description to join. Plus, join our WhatsApp community to stay updated. Hope you can check it out.
Now, I will tell you, New Mexico's Attorney General Raul Torres told The Sun that reported on this too, said, quote, revelations outlined in the previously sealed FBI files warrant further examination. I mentioned that too. And it's our understanding that investigations into the Zorro Ranch, they were closed in 2019, and it hasn't been searched by authorities since that time. And let's not forget, by the way, why this is really coming back in the news. Okay, why are we talking about this? Because in the millions and millions of pages released as part of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, there is an email that is standing out for a very, very disturbing, dark reason. We did a whole Sidebar episode on this, but I'll mention it again. You have an email from 2019, okay? And it appears to be directed to Edward Aragon, this local radio host. And the other names on the email are redacted, but it says this. Edward, this is sensitive, so it will be the first and last email depending on your discretion. You can choose to take it or trash it, but this comes from a person that has been there and seen it all as a former staff at the Zorro. Again, something to think about. As I mentioned, the launch of these new investigations. Is this person going to come forward? Okay. The material below was taken from Jeffrey Epstein's home as my insurance in case of future litigation against Epstein. Sorry, no questions. What is damning about Jeffrey Epstein is yet to be written. Did you know somewhere in the hills outside the Zorro, 2 foreign girls were buried on orders of Jeffrey and Madam G, presumably Ghislaine Maxwell? Both died by strangulation during rough fetish sex. And there even appears to be links to purported sex videos, including one that says sex video with a minor. Please arrange for 1 Bitcoin by 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thursday, 11/22/19, to the Bitcoin wallet address redacted. The USB will be sent anonymously to your attention by overnight courier upon receipt of the funds. You have my assurance this is exclusive, never shared before, no attorneys, no samples, no questions, please. Confirm ASAP. And by the way, Aragon said he got this message anonymously. He apparently sent this email to the FBI, which is why it was in the Epstein files release from the DOJ, by the way. And he indicated that he didn't pay this person, which when you think of what in Bitcoin, our understanding is it was about like $8,000 at this time, so many years ago. And he indicated that while he spoke to an FBI agent about this, he never heard anything more about it or the status of the investigation. But let me be clear, we couldn't find more corroborating evidence to support this, right? I didn't see anything more in the files to suggest about dead bodies being buried on this property. I don't know if these allegations are true, or if true, when this would have happened, right? That's important too, because I'll play it in a little bit, but I did an interview with Nita Rutherford, a coroner, to talk about the challenges about even if you find human remains, what is left? I mean, dental records, hair fibers, what can they tell you about the story? Particularly if you're dealing with strangulation, there's no clear markings sometimes that would tell you what happened for cause or manner of death. But if you want to check that full sidebar out, you can. A little bit later, I'm going to play you a sample of what she had to say. But at the very least, I can tell you this claim is being taken seriously, right? And also to be clear, this email has come into focus for all nefarious reasons, because Epstein reportedly purchased the property from former New Mexico Governor Bruce King in 1993. You have these separate civil lawsuits that accuse Epstein of sexually assaulting women and girls at this property. It was dubbed the Playboy Ranch, where Epstein is accused of, by the way, sexually abusing a 16-year-old girl as early as 1996. For example, in an unsealed 2016 court deposition, Epstein accuser, the late Virginia Giuffre, testified that Ghislaine Maxwell told her to give the late former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson a massage at the ranch. I want to expand on that for a second. So at Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking trial, where we learned a lot more about these allegations and about the evidence against her and Epstein, you had a number of accusers who testified, and they talked about New Mexico. So for example, at her trial, there was one accuser, Jane, who testified how she traveled with Epstein and Maxwell to the ranch in New Mexico, and when asked by a prosecutor whether someone came into her room, this is the back and forth, quote, "I just remember someone at one point just came into the room and said, 'Jeffrey wants to see you,' and then escorted me to see him." Question: when that person came into your room and told you that he wanted to see you, how did you feel? The answer: "I just as usual felt like my heart sink into my stomach, you know?" Question: and why was your heart sinking into your stomach? Answer: because I did not want to go see him. Question: what's the next thing you remember about that? I just remember being led to his bedroom and, the same thing would happen. You had another accuser who testified, quote, "I was very aware at that time that I was, very isolated, that, I was on this ranch with these two," meaning Maxwell and Epstein, "with these two people, and, no one's safe for a great distance. And so I just had thought, like, I just need to get through this and then it will be fine. And so I just, I didn't say anything." The question was asked, "Did Epstein cuddle you?" Answer: "Yeah." "Can you explain what happened?" "Yeah, he just, as I said, he's kind of had his arms around me and I felt again kind of frozen. And then I thought I have to have an excuse to get out of this. And so I just said I needed to go to the bathroom, and it was in my bedroom area and there was a bathroom near. And so I just made the excuse and got out of the bed and went into the bathroom and shut the door." Another accuser, by the way, once alleged that at this ranch in New Mexico, the following happened, and this is laid out pretty detailed in a filing in a civil lawsuit. It says, quote, "Jane Doe was taken to an upstairs bedroom. Epstein was lying on the bed on his back wearing only a bathrobe. Epstein ordered Jane Doe to stand next to the bed and give him a massage. As she started to do so, Epstein opened the bathrobe so that his was visible. Jane Doe sensed that Epstein expected her to do something sexual to him, but she did not know what it was. Epstein seemed to get frustrated as a result. Epstein then said, in substance, 'We're going to try something different.' Without warning, he grabbed Jane Doe by her shoulders and laid her down on the floor." And I'm not going to get descriptive, but she claims that he sexually assaulted her. And as I mentioned, the late Virginia Giuffre claims she was abused at this ranch. And actually, to give you an idea about this, she said the following in a court document and even added photos. Quote, "To illustrate my connection to these places, I include 4 photographs taken of me in New Mexico, shown below. The first one is a museum in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We had gone sightseeing for the day. Epstein took this picture of me. I was approximately 17 at the time, judging from the looks of it. At the end of the day, we returned to Epstein's Zorro Ranch. The second picture is me on one of Epstein's horses on the ranch in New Mexico. The following 2 are from wintertime in New Mexico. And as I mentioned, Giuffre alleged that Epstein trafficked her to the late governor, Bill Richardson, who died in 2023, by the way. And his spokesperson had previously denied the allegation, saying that he, quote, had limited interactions with Mr. Epstein, that he never saw him in the presence of young or underage girls. I'll also tell you, as we talk about the New Mexico property, there was a disturbing New York Times article from back in 2019 called Epstein Hoped to Seed Human Race with His DNA, which alleged that Epstein told people that he wanted to impregnate women and have them give birth to his babies on Zorro Ranch. Actually, by the way, this article was included in the Epstein Files release. I mean, I even found this email that was sent to Epstein in 2010 from a redacted, so we don't know who it's from. But I just want to read it to you. You've been on my mind a lot today. Just gave a talk in Philadelphia, hung out with Barnaby, and we had a mutual admiration moment about you. We also talked about genius, ... and eugenics. In one document about Epstein, it says that it was reported in August 2019 that Epstein had planned to, quote, seed the human race with his DNA by impregnating up to 20 women at a time using his New Mexico compound as a baby ranch where mothers would give birth to his offspring. He was an advocate of cryonics and his own idiosyncratic version of transhumanism, and it said that he intended to have his and head frozen. Now, I got to call this out, too. Apparently, the FBI at one point had interviewed the Zorro Ranch manager, the manager of Epstein's Zorro Ranch. And I want you to just listen to this. Quote, Redacted and his wife, Redacted, have been managing the Zorro Ranch for Jeffrey Epstein for approximately 4 years. There are 5 to 6 full-time staff at the ranch, as well as some seasonal employees. Epstein spends approximately 50 days a year at the ranch during his downtime, mostly in the summer. In the summer, Epstein generally spends 2 to 3 weeks at a time at the ranch. It is shuttled around by helicopter. The last time Epstein was at the ranch was Thanksgiving 2006. Epstein normally flies into either Albuquerque or Santa Fe and is driven to the ranch. Very little notice is given before Epstein flies to the ranch, usually 24 to 48 hours. Epstein usually brings his personal assistant, Redacted, his bodyguard, friends, personal trainer, and sometimes his masseuses. The masseuses are not normally flown to the ranch, but are hired by Redacted and Redacted. Redacted keeps the financial records and usually arranges the massages. The names of the masseuses are obtained from 10,000 Waves Day Spa or by referrals. Redacted said that the masseuses are all checked out and that they are professionals who are licensed massage therapists. There have been approximately 5 different therapists used in the past. Redacted said Redacted could provide the names of the therapists used and the amounts paid to them, but that we needed to go to the office to meet with her. Upon arriving at the office and greeting Redacted, Redacted received a phone call from the, quote, main office that told him they were no longer allowed to speak with us. The interview was immediately ended. Talk about suspicious, right? There's one thing to say, look, anytime an employee, talks to law enforcement about investigation of some kind, you want them to lawyer up. But I got to say, given these allegations about the New Mexico ranch, isn't that weird? Feels weird, right? Now, here's something interesting if we're talking about evidence and the allegations of hiding or destroying evidence or what new information that investigators can find. Remember when I said nothing really came from that 2019 investigation? So there is this email from an assistant United States attorney, appears to be Maureen Comey, in September of 2019. And it says, quote, as a preview in response to redacted email, we spoke with the New Mexico Attorney General's office back in July of 2019. In essence, they agreed to cease any investigation into sex trafficking and share whatever they had gathered to date regarding sex trafficking activity. With our office, we agreed that they were free to proceed with whatever other investigations unrelated to sex trafficking they may have concerning Epstein, and told them that at the conclusion of our case, we would pass along any information we may have gathered about state crimes that were committed in their jurisdiction. We have not communicated with anyone from the New Mexico AG's office since that conversation in July 2019. You also have a December 2019 email where a prosecutor says they have, quote, not searched the New Mexico property. Goes back to my concerns and reservations I had before this. So look, it does become a question of what investigators, lawmakers could or would find now. And back in September of 2019, you had Commissioner Stephanie Garcia-Richard, who sent a cancellation letter to Epstein's company, Cypress Inc., which was listed as the owner of the Zorro Ranch. And I just want to read you a part of it. It says, quote, the Attorney General has concluded that Cypress may have obtained the leases through illegitimate means for purposes other than ranching or agriculture. Now, I mentioned State Representative Andrea Romero before. In a statement, she said also that, quote, New Mexicans deserve to know the truth about what went on at the Zorro Ranch and who knew about it. We have heard years of allegations and rumors about Epstein's activities in New Mexico, but unfortunately, federal investigators have failed to put together an official record. With this Truth Commission, we can finally fill in the gaps by investigating the failures that led to the horrific allegations of abuse and crime at Zorro Ranch. We can learn from them and prevent such atrocities from taking place in our state going forward. Now, I mentioned this before. I want to play you a portion of it. I did a whole interview with Coroner Nada Rutherford, Dr. Nada Rutherford, on what happens if they found human remains. Can they ID it, the cause and manner of death? It's up on our Law&Crime YouTube page if you want to check the whole thing out. But here's a sample of what she had to say regarding how they could even go about searching the property.
So they would need some sort of ground penetrating devices that could help to look and see if there's some sort of grave there, if they put this person in a box, if they buried them with something special that's not supposed to be in the ground naturally. So they're going to need a lot of technology first before they just go digging around this property.
And it's a big property. It's a big property. And this allegation is not even clear about when these people were allegedly buried there, which makes me wonder, even if you were digging, what could you potentially find? What would be left over?
You're going to have skeletal remains at this point. These allegations purport that this happened so long ago. And so not only did they say that these are possibly minors, so you have smaller bodies that are potentially buried. You have scavengers that are in this area, again, animals that are indigenous to this area. Again, it is very hard to dig a grave unless you have special equipment, and especially on that type of terrain. So did they have special equipment? We know that supposedly these people have a lot of money. They have a lot of resources. So if they tapped into those resources, they could have done this properly. But again, that's why the technology piece of this is going to be so important, to be able to see where they could have possibly buried someone. And then the amount of time that has passed, it's going to be grown over. You're not going to be able to see, freshly disturbed ground as you would for someone who has maybe been recently buried. And so again, this is going to take a long time. And those excavation efforts are probably just going to reveal skeletal remains, which then you're going to have to extract DNA from possibly the femur bones. And then who are these supposed minors that were there? Do their families know that they're missing? Where were they trafficked from? So not only are you trying to pinpoint country of origin, possibly, since they said that these minors were possibly from foreign countries, now you're going to have to try to track down family utilizing DNA. Skeletal remains, again, you look at the femur bone, you're trying to gather the DNA from there, but what else could you do? Dental records and things, but you must know the identity of the person in order to be able to do that.
All right, a lot to think about. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock. We have our episodes up there as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you next time, everybody.